So welcome back, guys. Today we are joined by Keith, who is the CEO of Intoware. So welcome, Keith. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Intoware?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Jordan. So my name's Keith Tilley. I'm the CEO of Intoware. Actually, I was originally an investor in Intoware, which was a startup company. Prior to that,
Hmm.
I've run services companies, computer services companies, IT mainly, software and recovery services for a large American corporation for a large number of years, which covered many parts of the world, not New Zealand, but the rest of the world, just about from that perspective. Intoware is really about one product only. It's Workflow Plus, which is a digital workflow instructions. Basically, we're trying to get rid of paper and make the workers who do the various transactions more capable and more powerful. So that if you imagine getting rid of a clipboard and being able to do an installation, an implementation, an inspection or something like that, that's what we're all about. It sounds simple because it is, but it's surprising how few people are still doing that work. Works with wearable devices, so you can have headsets or you can use mobile phones or tablets. And I'm a bit of a rock fan, as you can see from the poster at the back.
Yes, some gorgeous guitars there. The Who, always a good song from The Who. Okay, so then do I understand like a tradie or something who is new on the job might have some instructions, but now with Intoware, it's digitized. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I think if you, again, probably an easy example is to use one of our customers. So oil and gas customer, right? If you imagine working on an oil rig, then if you have to do an inspections, you have to follow a certain set of instructions.
Right, right.
Doing
Okay.
that with a clipboard in the middle of the sea is a bit difficult. Doing it on a tablet or more importantly with a wearable device is a lot more easy. So we take those paper and we put them into digital workflows and then you get all sorts of other benefits from it. You can get Jordan to take a photograph, you can take a video, you can call a friend on it, all voice controlled, and we collect the data as that person goes through that workflow, which is also very important. So we can tell how long it takes them to do each individual step. A lot of our customers use that, as I say, for maintenance, installation, also a lot of health and safety, because before anybody goes up the oil rig, have you got the right equipment on? You can attach assets so you can actually show them this is what you should be doing, this is what you should be wearing. And as I
Okay.
say, you can get the evidential capture the person's done that as well. So
Uh-huh.
it kind of creates that environment where it's easier for people to follow instructions. It also means it's easier to train people as well because you train them on the actual instructions they need to do.
Right. Right. Really good, really cool idea. I spoke to a chap a few weeks back who runs an AR and a VR company, and one of the main use cases was developing custom solutions around training for very expensive, difficult things like. And I think he even used oil rigs because it must be a really complex task to change things, and it's a lot of money and lives are on the line, so it needs to get done correctly.
That's correct. And in the right order sometimes. Do this
Yeah.
first before you do that.
So, who do you typically serve the best? You touched on one customer. Do you find that a certain type of customer has the best results?
Yeah, it's definitely a case of, in theory, as a lot of us software owners would say, yeah, our product can do everything for everybody, but there are people who make more use of it. So oil and gas is one of them. Manufacturing is another one. If you think about the way manufacturers work, then they have a lot of machinery which they need to maintain and they need to inspect. So we have a lot of manufacturing companies, construction companies, a lot of health and safety involved in that, and
Mhm.
infrastructure. So although we have customers across a wide number of sectors, it tends to be mainly in the manufacturing, utilities such as oil and gas, right? Infrastructure and construction. They tend to be the ones. And then they focus on specific areas. I keep mentioning maintenance and inspection, but there's also training, right? Audit compliance and health and safety. That tends to be another one. So it's a wide variety of things. And you picked up nicely when you said about the AR, VR stuff, because, combining the two together can be very powerful because the AR, VR can give you a certain sort of images. And with our software, you can then make sure that the processes are actually done and record the information. So if you're inspecting something, it can be a case of, what's the reading on that valve? Take a photograph of it, inspect it. So, and then you can capture that data. And because it's online all the time, it means that you can have that data live back in your head office. So you can start making decisions based on that.
Right,
But
right.
there's lots. People tend to start with it a very simplistic viewpoint, which is I just need to replace this process. And then when they see the power of the data that is gathered, you can start doing all sorts of things. You can put it into Power BI dashboards, so you can suddenly have a dashboard and you can compare how Jordan's doing an inspection to Keith's doing an inspection. And maybe that will show trends that, Keith needs to have a bit more training because he's taking a lot longer than Jordan to do this sort of thing. So there's lots of add-on benefits past the basic. Let's get rid of the paper. Let's get a report out very quickly.
Okay. Nice.
That's the way to do it. It's very efficient. I think, again, another example quickly is customer of ours solar panel maintenance. So they go out and maintain the solar panels. Previously, they would go out and they do the inspections across 4 days and then sit back in the office and have to put everything in order to get the data in because they were doing it on paper and clipboards. This way, you can inspect 5 days a week. The data's straight away there because it's synced straight back. You can work offline, but as soon as you get onto an internet connection, then the data is pushed back. So
Hmm.
it makes it a lot more efficient from that point of view.
Right. Right. That makes a lot of sense. Got it. And then, Keith, are you using AI at all to pass the or understand the data?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a hot topic of everything. Everybody's using AI from that perspective.
Sure.
I think what we like to say is we are using AI to assist in the way we do it. And so one of the first things we're doing with it is in order to do these processes, some people come with paper processes and it literally is a checklist. Open this, do this, do this, do this, do this.
Uh-huh.
And we have a very simple web editor where it's very easy to be able to put that in. Other people come and say, I want to do a maintenance on that fire door because I have to once every 6 months. So the first iteration of AI we've got is we've got an AI bot where you can literally say, what is it you're trying to do? So you would type in, I want to know what I should do in order to maintain a fire door. And then our bot suggests the steps that you need to take, where you want to put photographs in, where you want the person to sign off on it, where you want to do a video, and
Hmm.
it puts that into our editor. So it gives you a kind of starting point for where
Okay.
you want to get. All right. So that's the first iteration. Now, what we're also working on is to take that to the next stage, which would be, for instance, saying, okay, well, what's the fire regulations within that country? So go and look at the fire regulations and suggest you may need to do this, which is slightly different in this country to that country. So it'd be
Hmm.
using agentic AI to be able to go and search and then come back in and make suggestions. It won't tell you this is what you have to do because at the end of the day, there are nuances between what people do and where those are. And another good example of that could be, okay, I want to maintain this aircraft engine. You and I could have exactly the same engine on our planes, but you might be flying in the Sahara and I'm flying in Alaska.
Right.
And
Right.
although
Right.
we
Yeah.
both fly 10,000 miles, the conditions are completely different. And therefore
Mm-hmm.
you need the nuances of the maintenance needs to be slightly different because that's always getting sand in it. And this is always in a cold temperature. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the next iteration that we see of what we want to do with AI is make suggestions, recommendations and regulations in order to be able to improve what you're doing. And I think the other thing for us is quite often the data is specific to that customer. And in fact, that can be a bit of their IPR is, they want to keep this within their own AI agents. They don't want this
Yeah.
to be out on ChatGPT and DeepSeek and stuff like that because hang on a minute,
Yeah.
that's how I maintain in order to keep my costs efficient and meet the regulations. So we can see that this will be, the ability to go out to the general regulations, but the ability to go back to your old data. And then, as you say, using that data that says, hey, I can now start to predict. I've now realized that if the valve is reporting a certain pressure, that it's likely to break down in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So let's schedule the maintenance because for
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
manufacturer, as an example, an unexpected downtime costs money in production. A planned maintenance that could be done in the middle of the night, doesn't cost the same sort of outage. So if I can predict when I need to do some maintenance, then that's going to be an improvement on breaking or doing maintenance when I don't need it because now I've got all the data that says, hey, you can leave that for another week or two, or you can do that. That's what we envisage happening.
Okay.
So there's
Nice.
lots to do with AI, but there is for everybody, right? In personal life as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You touched on something really interesting at the start there. Everybody has like an AI strategy. AI started as a buzzword, but it sounds like you guys have incorporated AI in a smart and simple way in the beginning, and you've got some interesting, exciting stuff on the roadmap. So
Yeah.
really cool.
And I think with lots of things, you got to get the key to some of the technology is that, make it as easy as possible for the other person to use. So,
Mhm.
the adoption for our services, persons who are used to doing things in a certain way, right? And go back to the old fashioned clipboard. You then bring something else in, right? It's got to be easy for them to use. They've got to like the interface. We spend a lot of time looking at the user interface to make it easy for the person to use,
Hmm.
because no matter how good the system is, if the person finds difficulty in doing it, they'll find a way around it or they won't use it. And to get the
Yeah.
adoption, you need to make it as easy as possible. So again, as I mentioned, yes, there are use cases where you need the wearable devices because you need both hands free.
Hmm.
And this is definitely AR, not VR, because you can't put a VR headset in the middle of an ocean going up an oil rig, because you need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to have that. So it's definitely augmented or assisted reality that you want. But equally, for a lot of other tasks, it could be a case of, hey, just get your contractor to load the app down on their mobile phone. It's nothing
Hmm.
different to having a WhatsApp or a banking app. Send them the process they need to do. They follow the process. They record everything, send you back the information. So keep it keep it simple, stupid, because that's the best way of getting the adoption. And if AI can help us do that, then that's going to be beneficial to the customer as well as to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Great insight there, Keith. Cool. So with Intoware, what do you think have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in scaling the business? Because it sounded like you started at a different role, right? You started as an investor.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's another interesting thing is through my career, I was fortunate enough to work with a great set of people, and we were able to expand the company from small beginnings and then get acquired, and through various acquisitions, we ended up being a $1.4 billion company. Right now, it's back to being a 1 million company, and so therefore, there's a different challenges for startup companies. There is convincing people to invest in you. What's your idea? That's what attracted me to this, was the original CTO coming to me and saying, hey, this is my idea. What do you think? Now, not just me. There's lots of other investors, right, who came on board, but it was kind of like, yeah, I get this. I can see how this is disruptive. I can see how it's going to be a challenge going further forward. And then strange events happen that actually accelerates to COVID. In a way, was an event that helped us, because suddenly you can't go out. So how do I tell you to what you need to do?
Right.
Well, if I can send you the instruction in a digital format and get it, then that's easier to do. So the interest level perks up, right? Just to, okay, I want to take this technology and use it. And then go back to what I said before, the biggest challenge then is getting the people to use it from that perspective. So it is about growth. It's about going from running a marketing budget that was a couple of $100 million to a marketing budget that's a couple of $100 almost. It's that extreme. And how do you get the
Yeah.
messages out? Right. So the kind of stuff we're doing here, this is the way of people absorb information now. It's not the same, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
principles are
Yeah.
the same. At the end of the day, how do you tell people about your product? Well, the principles in the old day was direct mail, radio, television. The
Hmm.
principles are still the same. I've got to get the message out, but people don't open mail so much. They open emails. Now you're getting inundated with emails. How do you make yours different to other people? But it's still the challenge. Finding the people who want to buy your product, finding the time that they've got the budget to do it, and then getting there at the time when they're making those kind of decisions is going to lead them onto that. So the kind of stuff you do for your customers is exactly that. The right personas, the right messages, because you've got to get through this mass of information to get people into you. And as you probably know, a potential customer probably touches you 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before they actually start to really talk to you about that. So it's important to get the message out in lots of different ways. And for small companies, that is harder. That is harder because there's not a noise out.
Absolutely. And you're very right in saying that the fundamentals of sales and marketing are still the same, and they'll probably still be the same in 100 years from now. Actually, Alex Hermosi he's a fantastic business guru. I don't know what you'd call him at this point. He's sort of taken the world by storm. Do you know him?
I must admit, no, 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 I don't.
Okay, definitely worth a Google after this. But he breaks things down to really simple frameworks, and the thing that he always comes back to is that there are four ways that you can let people know about your stuff. Right? You've got warm outreach, cold outreach. You can either post free content or you can run paid ads. And so everything sort of falls into these four buckets. And yeah, I think they will continue to fall within those four buckets
Yeah,
into the future.
exactly. Because, the very first, I'm old enough to say this, the very first job I had was a door to door salesperson for insurance. And the
Hmm.
principles are still the same. So here's a street. Okay. I have no clue whether any of these people have already got life insurance at that time, because PCs hadn't even been invented then. So you're knocking on the door. right? Hello, right? And then you've got the pattern you're trying to find in, and you very quickly learn when you're doing that. You also find out the time wasters as well, the people who invite you in because they want some company,
Yeah.
right? And they just want to talk. And then you
Yeah.
realize a certain amount of questions you need to ask because much as it's very friendly, you need to earn some money, so you're pulling out. But again, you're right, the principles are the same. And for businesses, it's slightly different for personal, B2C is slightly different. You're trying to, I'm surrounded by gadgets. Do I need another guitar? No. Will I go and buy one day? Yes, probably will, but I don't really need it. For businesses to business, there are some fundamentals, right? You're selling them to help drive their revenue or reduce their costs. In other words, make them more efficient, or keep them legal. In other words, most companies buy
Fine.
insurance
Yeah.
because they have to, but they really wouldn't. If they could get away with it, they wouldn't, but they don't. Right. So our products is lucky. We can help you drive revenue and efficiencies by what we do. And at the same
Hmm.
time, with the evidential capture, we can keep you legal. So we can tick all the boxes from that point of view. But you've got to get to the people who are looking for that and show them what the problem is and how you can overcome it.
Absolutely. And so like a perfect segue into the next question then, how are you currently acquiring clients or going about a client acquisition?
Exactly as you just said, it sort of respects a bit of a cold outreach, a bit of warm outreach, a bit of, the best things that we can do is word of mouth for small companies is really good, right? So when you get into a company and they start talking about you and they allow you to talk back about them. And so we quite often have land and expand, right? From that perspective, within individual companies, they'll come to us and say, hey, I've got this problem. I think you can solve it. Yes, we can. And then they realize they can solve more problems from more problems, more problems. So go back to the company I told you, the manufacturing, which is actually it's a pharmaceutical company, but it's manufacturing the tablets. They
Hmm.
started off with a small trial. They then signed a contract for 1 year. They then signed a contract for 2 years. They're now coming to the end of their fourth contract with us, which was for 3 years. We've just implemented a significant upgrade for them because
Hmm.
they've taken our service is normally SaaS. They wanted to be on premise, so we've done that for them.
Hmm.
And they've just added 50% onto their count. But that's taken 1, 2, 3, 5 years to get to. So there's land and expand. Getting that message out. So we have a very high, over 100% retention rate. People grow with us and stay with us. But getting new
Okay.
customers, the kind of stuff your company does, getting new customers, that's getting on the radar of those, getting on the spectrum of those. So word of mouth is good. We use some paid adverts from that perspective. The old fashioned shows, still you can get good footfalls, right? Again, that all dried up during COVID, obviously, but since then, but it goes back to what you said and what we were talking about. You've got to go to the shows where the people that you are most attractive to are going to be at. And then you have to get the right messaging in front of them to be able to get them to come on your stand, right? And
Yeah.
see you and speak to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then Keith, there's an interesting question that I want to ask that I often ask, and I'm always surprised by the responses that I get. So let's say that you had a magical wand that you could wave over a big problem inside of Intoware right now, and you could solve it just like that. What would that big problem be?
It would be at our stage, it would be to generate more leads. I mean, that's what we need because we know when we get them in there, our success rate of turning them into customers is good, but it's
Hmm.
getting that volume of leads in place, right? And that to me is a tricky. There's lots of other things I could say. Hey, I'd like more investment so I can accelerate the AI stuff. I'd like to have more investment so I can go to more events and do more things. But it all comes down to that same thing, right? We've got a great product. We've got a great team, very small team. We're less than 10 people. A great product. They've been here a long time, most of them. They like what they're doing and they work really well together.
Hmm.
It's getting that messaging out that is going to be the tricky. So that would be the magic wand, right?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of CEOs and founders say the same thing because they aren't building a company that sucks. They're building a company that's solving real world problems and doing cool stuff. It's just a matter of getting as many eyeballs on the solution as possible because most of the time they have that like click aha moment when you do explain them. But the problem is actually getting in front of those people and qualifying them and do they have the need in the first place? So yeah, I mean that's why people like me exist, right?
Well, no, but it's true. But you see, in our own lives, hey, I'll get 100 emails a day, right? I'll
Yeah.
probably delete 50% of them by just on the subject line. and just go, no, 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 because time is is precious, right? Don't email me about a new car if you know me and you know me that I've bought a car the other week. What's the point? That's it. And so, you know, what you can do and companies like you can do is, um, there is a lot of it is a bit like the old direct mail. Just stick it through the, oh, look, we got a 1% return. Fantastic. It's a bit like that. People can, and this is where AI can be a bit bad. They're a bit lazy. You can almost see it come through. It's just kind of like this is not personalized, and people do business with people at the end. This is not a commodity where I just want a can of Coke. I don't care where I get it from.
Hmm.
So I'm going to invest in you, sign a long-term contract, and you're going to do this. I need to know not just the product's good. I need to know the support good. I need to know the people's good. And so they will, they will want to eventually talk to the people. How do you get that personalised message back to them? Oh, I apologise. There's a bit of sun here, which is very unusual for the UK. Only over the last few months, there's been more rain, but there's actually sunlight coming in through the window.
That's okay. It's lighting you up. You look angelic,
I was going to
Keith.
say, yeah, it looks something like that. I'll be getting red face on this side and nothing on that side.
Yeah. Well, some fantastic insight there. And I guess wrapping up then, like if you could go back maybe and you could change something about your journey with Intoware so far, what are some things that you might change?
That's a good question. I think what I would probably change is we should have focused a little bit sooner. Because when
Mm.
you're new and you get all the leads coming in, it's go, oh, let's go, let's go, let's go. We'll have this, we'll have this, this. And really what you should do is, no, hang on a minute. We seem to be very good at this. So let's become number one and number two in that. And then we can look to expand into that. But when you're chasing those deals, you're kind of like, you're hooking on to everything. So one case of that. Now we've done a fair bit of that since I joined, but an example of that beforehand was that there was a prospect. I picked this up after I joined, right? But there's a prospect who came in who was adamant they wanted to use Microsoft HoloLens for what they wanted to do. So they
Okay.
persuaded us to amend the software to work on the HoloLens, right? And eventually they didn't go any further forward with it. Now, in hindsight, if you'd looked at it, you would have said, hang on a minute. Okay. They're in an environment which is industrial. The HoloLens at the time was quite a physically flimsy product, right? So therefore it wouldn't have stood the test of time within an industrial environment. There are
Okay.
headsets out there that do, right? Such as RealWear is one of those industrial headsets. You can drop them, you can step on them, etc. And so with a bit more focus and a bit more thought, we would have said, hang on a minute. It goes back to what I said about the people who've got to use it, right? They've got to be comfortable with it. Well, hang on a minute. Every time I put this down and get scratched, I can't use it. They're not going to use it. So focus, right? Keep your focus on something, get the case studies so you've got the proof points. Because again, that's what people ask for. When it's a new product, so yeah, paper works. Yeah, it works. It's got lots of flaws with it, but it works. So you got persuade me why I should get rid of this. It's worked forever. Persuade me why. So let me give you a use case. The return on investment, the safety check, the education that you can get from it. Right?
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Because we
Yeah.
found, sorry, last little bit is one example of this would be, because when you do use digital workflows with Intoware, right? As I mentioned to you, it's all broken down into the individual. It's not a digital checklist. It's a workflow. It takes you through it. Each step is monitored. How long did it take? GPS coordinated, right?
Okay.
So therefore you can't, true life example of that, which is, hey, I'm doing this report here. Are you on site? Yes. That's interesting. GPS says you're in Starbucks. So you're clearly not where you said you would be. Now, that can sound a bit like I'm looking over the person's shoulder, but no, this is health and safety, right? I need to know that if you're inspecting a rail track, you're inspecting the track that is now turned off and not the track that the train is going to come on, right? So it's important. It's for your safety as well as your efficiency from that point of view. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, stuff like that just stops lazy people from getting away with things that they've been getting away with things for forever, and keeps
yeah,
everybody above board. So yeah, I'm all
yeah,
on
and I,
board
th-
for
I
that.
think people don't start off to do that. I mean, another good example actually is we've gone into companies where we've been replacing the paper process, and then when you sit down and start talking to the people who actually do it, And we've had the case in a boardroom where, okay, this is Jordan. He's the one who does it, right? So Jordan, look at this. We're going to turn this into digital. Here's your paper. We're going to do this. And then Jordan turns around and says, well, that's not how we do it. I go, what? Well, no, we found it's easier to, instead of going 1, 2, 3, we go 1, 5, 6, then come back. And we've become more efficient from that. Wow. If we'd known that, we would have changed the process. Now you can. You can change our process dynamically so that not only can Jordan do it, but now Jordan's expertise is now spread to everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
So it can
absolutely.
improve what you're doing as well.
Well, definitely. Like the bigger I scale my personal business, the more I see that systems and processes are the backbone that keeps everything from collapsing on the weight of itself. So, yeah, if you don't have those and you don't have them as efficient as possible, what are you doing? So it sounds like you guys, like I said, solving a bleeding neck problem for a lot of these businesses. So no wonder you've done so well and will continue to do so well.
I hope so.
So Keith, look, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. Some really amazing nuggets there that I'm really looking forward to go back and clipping. If people want to connect with you maybe, or they want to check out Intoware, like where can they go? How can they connect?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's dead simple. Just Google Intoware, Intoware. You'll get into the website. Keith Tilley. I'm on LinkedIn. Just look me up and send me an invite. And if we've got mutual things in common, like we did when you reached out, then we'll connect and we'll see where we can take it from there.
Perfect. And I'll leave links in the descriptions. I highly encourage everybody to go check out Keith and the team at Intoware. Like I say, Keith, thank you so much for your time and your insights. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you in the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, guys.